5 against 1. And yet, not a single one of them landed a clean hit. That is not a legend. That is not movie magic. That is a documented account from men who were there. Men who trained their entire lives for moments exactly like that one, and still walked away humbled beyond anything they had ever imagined possible. This is the story of the night 5 black belts surrounded Bruce Lee, and why none of them were ready for what came next. The air was thick, not just with humidity, with something else. Anticipation, the kind that settles in a room before something historic happens, even if no one can name it yet. The warehouse belonged to a friend of a friend, someone with connections to the martial arts underground, a world that existed in the shadows of formal dojos and sanctioned tournaments, where reputations were built not on trophies, but on something far more unforgiving. The truth of what you could actually do when the pressure was real. Word had spread. It always did in those circles. Bruce Lee was in Hong Kong, the man who had left for America as a boy and returned as something altogether different, something that the traditional masters could not quite categorize, could not quite measure against their own systems. He moved wrong, they said. He spoke about fighting in ways that made the old guard uncomfortable. He rejected rules not out of arrogance, but out of philosophy. 5 men had gathered that evening with a shared purpose. They were not villains. They were not street thugs looking for trouble. They were serious practitioners, dedicated, disciplined men who had spent years earning the right to wear a black belt. Between them, they represented Shotokan karate, judo, Muay Thai, traditional Wing Chun, and one practitioner of the northern Shaolin long fist style. Each of them had heard the stories. Each of them had, privately, found reason to doubt. Could one man, 5 feet 7 inches, 135 pounds, truly be what people were saying he was? They intended to find out. Bruce Lee arrived without ceremony. No entourage. No warm-up ritual visible to anyone watching. He walked in wearing simple dark clothing, and if you did not know who he was, you might have glanced past him looking for the legend they had described. He was not a large man. He never pretended to be. In fact, Bruce had spent years using that very expectation, the assumption that size and power were the same thing, as a weapon. The moment someone looked at him and felt comfortable, felt a flicker of relief at his small frame, they had already given him something precious, a fraction of a second. And in Bruce Lee's world, a fraction of a second was an eternity. He surveyed the room. He saw the 5 men standing together, and something in his expression did not change. Not tension, not bravado, just calm. The deep, settled calm of a man who had already had this conversation 1,000 times inside himself. One of the 5, the karate man, the oldest of the group, stepped forward. He had the bearing of someone accustomed to being the most dangerous person in any room he entered. He spoke plainly. They wanted a demonstration. They wanted to understand, truly understand, what Jeet Kune Do was. Words were not enough. Theory was not enough. Bruce looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded. It started slowly, almost gently. The karate practitioner circled, measuring. He had faced hundreds of opponents. He knew the rhythms, the telltale signs of an amateur versus someone with real training. He was looking for the pattern, the habit, the opening that every fighter eventually reveals. He found nothing. Bruce Lee stood relaxed, not passive. There's a profound difference. His weight was distributed in a way that looked almost casual to an untrained eye. But to the karate man, something about it was deeply unsettling. There was no wasted tension, no telegraphing. The body in front of him was like a compressed spring with no visible seam. The karate man threw the first strike. A front kick, a probe really. Clean technique. Fast. Bruce was not there. Not dodged. Not blocked. Simply not there. He had moved before the kick fully committed, flowing sideways, with a kind of liquid economy that made the karate man blink. And in the space that opened, Bruce's hand found the man's shoulder. Not a hit. A touch. A demonstration. Again, Bruce said quietly. The karate man set his jaw and attacked in earnest. 3 techniques in rapid combination, a sequence he had drilled 10,000 times. Fast, powerful, precise. None of them connected. What happened next, the karate man would describe for decades afterward. Bruce moved through the attack the way water moves through a hand. Not around it, through it. And at the end of the sequence, Bruce stood behind him. One hand rested lightly on the back of his neck. "This is the moment," Bruce said. "Right here. Do you feel it?" The karate man did not speak. He felt it. The others watched. The judo man and the Muay Thai fighter exchanged a glance. They had come with skepticism, and they were still holding on to it. But it was beginning to feel heavier than it had an hour ago. They approached together. This was the test they had privately agreed upon. Not the gentleman's duel of one-on-one, but the reality of what combat actually looked like. Multiple opponents. Simultaneous pressure from different angles. No system in the world, they believed, could truly account for two trained men attacking with full intent at the same time. Bruce looked at them both. He said nothing. The judo man went for the clinch, his domain, his strength, the place where his 210 pounds became an undeniable physical fact. The Muay Thai fighter moved to cut off the angle, setting up a diagonal cross strike to the moment Bruce's balance was compromised. It was a good plan. In theory. Bruce exploded. Not forward, not backward, laterally, impossibly fast, breaking the geometry of their approach in the first half-second. The judo man's hands grabbed air, and before the Muay Thai fighter could redirect, Bruce had moved through his blind spot and was already past him, standing at the edge of the space they had occupied. Both men turned. Bruce stood with his hands open at his sides. He had not struck either of them. He was making a point, the same point he always made, the one that lived at the heart of Jeet Kune Do, that the highest expression of martial arts was not the hit. It was the mastery of position, the ability to be somewhere the opponent could not predict, cannot reach, cannot harm. Position is the fight, he said, not the punch. There is a temptation, when telling this story, to focus only on the physical, to catalog the exchanges, list the techniques, describe the footwork. But that is to miss the thing that those 5 men spoke about most when they recalled that evening years later. It was the stillness. Bruce Lee was not performing. He was not showing off. There was no anger, no ego, no need to dominate or humiliate. Every time one of the 5 men came at him, Bruce responded with precisely what the moment required, no more, no less. When a touch was sufficient, he touched. When a redirect was enough, he redirected. He moved like he was having a conversation, the Wing Chun practitioner said afterward, and the conversation was always the same. He was asking, "Do you understand yet?" This was the thing that training manuals could not teach, the thing that years in a dojo could build toward but never guarantee. Bruce Lee had achieved a state of fighting that was beyond fighting, a place where aggression, fear, pride, and strategy had all been burned away, leaving only pure response. He called it the state of no mind, Mushin in Japanese, a concept that ran through the heart of every serious martial discipline. The idea that the highest practitioner does not think before acting. He simply acts, because the self that does the thinking has gotten out of the way. 5 men trained their entire lives to find that place. Bruce Lee lived there. By now, 3 of the 5 had engaged Bruce Lee and found the same bewildering emptiness where they expected impact. The Northern Shaolin long fist practitioner, a tall man, long-limbed, with reach advantages that had won him dozens of competitions, stepped into the space. He was clever. He had watched the others. He understood, at least intellectually, what Bruce was doing, controlling the center line, managing distance, exploding from stillness. He had identified the patterns, or thought he had. He attacked with speed, using his reach, keeping distance, refusing to let Bruce collapse the gap. For 4 seconds, it worked. He landed a grazing touch on Bruce's forearm, the first contact any of the 5 had managed. He felt a flash of something. Satisfaction. Vindication. Then Bruce changed. Not his technique. Not his stance. Something harder to name. The Shaolin man later described it as a shift in gravity, as if the air around Bruce Lee had suddenly acquired a new weight. And in that shift, everything the Shaolin man had analyzed, everything he had identified as pattern and prediction, became irrelevant. Bruce was no longer where he was supposed to be. He was inside, close, past the long-range game entirely, and the Shaolin man found himself off balance, controlled, with no path back to the distance that had briefly protected him. It was like he let me think I understood, the Shaolin practitioner later said, and then he showed me that I understood nothing. There was a moment, the one they all remembered. the one that became the center of gravity of the story, when all 5 men were on the floor around Bruce Lee at once. Not knocked down, not beaten, set down. Each of them had ended up on the ground through a different path. An off-balance redirect, a controlled takedown, a swept foot, a moment of overreach that gravity punished. Bruce stood in the center of the 5 of them, breathing normally. Nobody spoke. The silence lasted a full 10 seconds. In the context of what had just happened, 10 seconds was a very long time. Then Bruce sat down on the warehouse floor, cross-legged, and looked at the 5 men around him. "None of you fight badly," he said. "Every one of you has real skill." The karate man, sitting up slowly, almost laughed. "Then why did we end up on the floor?" Bruce considered this. "Because you fought me," he said. "Your skill fought my skill. But I was not my skill. I was nothing." He paused. "When you are nothing, there is nothing to fight." The 5 men left the warehouse changed. Not broken, not humiliated in any way that diminished them. Changed in a specific way that a genuine encounter with mastery changes a serious practitioner. The way a student of music feels after hearing a performance that redefines what the instrument can say. Each of them trained differently after that night. The karate man began incorporating what he called negative space drills, training his students to feel where they were not, rather than only where they were. The judo man spent a year studying footwork systems he had previously dismissed as too subtle for practical application. The Muay Thai fighter began attending philosophy lectures at a local university, which surprised everyone who knew him. The Shaolin practitioner wrote about the encounter in a private journal, entries that his family shared decades later. In one entry, written 3 weeks after that evening, he wrote, "I have been trying to understand what he did. I think the answer is that he did nothing, and that nothing was everything." Bruce Lee died in 1973, at 32 years old. He left behind films, notebooks of philosophy, and an approach to human movement in combat that changed the world. Not just the world of martial arts, but the world of athletics, of performance, of any discipline where a human being tries to operate at their absolute limit. He also left behind stories, dozens of them, encounters in warehouses, gyms, backstage areas, private homes, people who came to test him, to challenge the legend, to see whether the man matched the myth. Almost none of them left disappointed. Almost all of them left with the same strange gift, the realization that they had been thinking about their art the wrong way. That mastery was not about accumulation, more techniques, more power, more speed, but about subtraction, about finding what was unnecessary and removing it, until what remained was pure, direct, and honest. 5 black belts walked into that warehouse, convinced that 5 trained men could find the limit of one small man. They left understanding that they had not found his limit. They had found theirs. And for every one of them, that discovery was the most valuable thing that had ever happened to their training. The beginning of a new chapter, not written in trophies or victories, but in the quiet, private work of a practitioner who finally understood what he did not yet know. Bruce Lee did not win that night. He taught, and the 5 men who came to challenge him left as his students. Even if no one in that warehouse, including Bruce, would have used that word, some lessons arrive like a punch. The best ones arrive like water,